الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه ومن تمسك بهديه. أما بعد فإن خير الكلام كلام الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. أيها الشاب الموفق، هذه وصايا أنصحك بها نصيحة محب مشفق، إن أخذت بها كانت موجبة لنجاتك وسببا لفلاحك وسعادتك في دنياك وأخراك. O you successful youth, O young man, O young woman who is divinely inspired, divinely guided by Allah, O young Muslim, O young Muslimah, who by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees with the insight that is given by Allah, hears and listens with the divine listening that is given by Allah. O young Muslim, O young Muslimah, who only takes steps, only touch and grab, who only eat and drink and consume and do things that are divinely inspired by Allah, divinely, gracefully guided by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are some pieces of advice that I want to give you. And this advice is advice coming from someone who's muhib and mushfiq, someone who loves you, and someone who has a great deal of care and compassion. If you take these pieces of advice, then by the permission of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's no doubt you will be successful in your worldly life and in your afterlife. Once again, Ya ayyuha shab, O young Muslim, male or female, who we say in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a means of taraji, hoping and expecting and longing that Allah has given you tawfiq. Allah has given you that which is called tawfiq, and that you are in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala muwaffaq, successful in this life and in hereafter, divinely inspired, a young man, a young woman who sees but doesn't see like the normal average person, who hears but doesn't hear like the normal average person, the steps that you make, the things that you touch, what you do in your life. Bi-idhnillahi subhanahu wa ta'ala, hopefully, inshallah, all of your actions and all the things that you do are divinely inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. عليك أيها الشاب أن تعمل على صيانة شبابك وحفظه بأن تتجنب الشرور والفساد بأنواعه، مستعينا في ذلك بالله، متوكلا عليه وحده جل في علاه، وكل سبب أو مدخل أو طريق يفضي بك إلى شر أو فساد فاجتنبه واحذره غاية الحذر. O young man, O young woman, the first piece of advice is to look after your youth. Look after your strong, young, bright years. Look after the abundance of energy that you have. Look after the abundance of free time that you have. Look after the lack of stress and worry and grief and responsibilities that you have. Protect these golden years out of your life and avoid anything which is harmful, which is dangerous, anything which is a vice, anything which is negative, anything which will be your undoing with regards to your religion, with regards to your health, physical spiritual, anything that is going to take your pure, natural state into a tainted, adulterous state. Do we understand these words? Once you lose your youth, you become old, you become weak, you become sick, you become tired, you become busy with the worldly life, with bills and responsibilities and obligations. And you sit down and you wish and you beg for 5 minutes, 10 minutes. You want to go play, you want to go run, you want recreation, you want time to study and to read, but there is no time. There is no strength. There is no vigor. Your knees, your legs, they just can't move the same way as they used to. Take advantage of your youth. And not just take advantage of your youth, but protect it. Protect it, keep it safe. So anything that is going to harm your natural state of youth, avoid that thing. In the deen or in the dunya. You getting a boyfriend or girlfriend. You're smoking drugs. You're drinking. You're partying. You're getting a tattoo. You're going here, going there, this friend, that friend. You wasting the years out of your life not memorizing the Quran, not going overseas to study, taking advantage of the youthful years that you have in your life. Because once those youthful years are gone, you can never ever get them back. And it's quite amazing is that everybody rushes to get old, rushes to be mature, rushes to be cool, to be older, to hang with older people. And when they get older, they rush to do what? To become youthful. I want to look young again. Some people that are older, they want to dress to feel young. Or they get cosmetic surgery to look young. And talk and like this and like that. Because they know the value of youth. But they didn't value the youth when they had it. They didn't value the time when they had it. They didn't value the energy when they had it. They didn't value the lack of responsibility when they had it. And then when they lose these things, then they go and they wish, and it's too late. So we're speaking not to the older brothers, not to the older sisters, not to the teenagers, but the youngsters. The youngsters. Take advantage of your youth. If you want to study Quran, you want to learn Quran, then there's no place for you here in America. Leave. Go. You don't have to go to one country. It doesn't have to be a specific country. You don't have to go to Saudi Arabia. Go and study. You're staying in the streets of New York City. Your friends, your parents, everything's comfortable and easy and accessible. A year, 18 turns to 19, 19 turns to 20, 20 turns to 22, then you're 25. You're married, you have children, and you can't study, and you can't memorize. If you want to do that, then leave. Do what you need to do right now. Take advantage of your youthful years. And it applies to anything else in the worldly life. A profession, a career, success in the dunya. It doesn't start when you're older, but it starts now. Take advantage of it right now. And there isn't a great champion of athletes, those who are legends, except that when you read about their lives, you see that they started at a young age. But you didn't hear about them until later on. You didn't see them until later on. They didn't win a championship until years after in the league. But he was great for many years. He practiced for many years. He spent countless hours of blood, sweat, and tears honing his or her skills, developing and harnessing his or her talents. So you have to take care of your youth, because once it's gone, it's gone. And only Allah knows how many responsibilities and obligations a person has when he gets older. And you just want a day to yourself. That's why people take vacations. That's why people drink. That's why people smoke. That's why people commit suicide, because so much stress, so much worry. And a person loses the direct contact with him or herself. You have the ability to do that now. You have the ability to study all day, to play all day, to work, to learn, to do this. So take advantage of your youth. That's the first piece of advice. The next piece of advice is, just because you fill your time with beneficial things, you must avoid that which is harmful. You can't grow a flower if you have weeds in your garden. You cannot grow a flower or a bush, a rose, if you have weeds in your garden. So just as you have to fill your time with that which is good and permissible and beneficial, you have to make sure that you have no time for evil, And anything which is harmful in itself or leads to harm, don't just stay away from it. Don't just be wary, be careful. Beware, stay totally away from it. وعليك أيها الشاب أن تكون محافظا تمام المحافظة على فرائض الإسلام وواجبات الدين، لا سيما الصلاة، فإن الصلاة عصمة لك من الشر وأمنة لك من الباطل، فإن الصلاة معونة على الخير ومزدجر عن كل شر وباطل. The next piece of advice for the Muslim youth is to look after the obligations of Islam. Take care of your Islamic obligations, not with regards to your parents, not with regards to school, not with regards to your friends, your health, your appearance, your hygiene, your mother and your father. And all of these things are important. But the very first thing, the most important thing, is your Islamic obligation. What duty does Allah have over you? That's the first question. Are you fulfilling that duty? If you are fulfilling the duty, how can you enhance it? How can you improve it? How can you better yourself with regards to Allah's rights? And obviously, if you're not fulfilling the duty, if you're not carrying out your responsibility, not with your parents, your grades, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, why? What is causing you to be a bad Muslim? What is causing you to be a negligent Muslim youth? Why don't you feel interested coming to the mosque? Why is every Islamic lecture boring? Why don't you want to be a Muslim? Why are your friends non-Muslims? Why are your Muslim friends people who don't pray, who don't make dhikr, who curse, who swear, who smoke, whose phones are full of profanity and obscenities? Why? How did you get so far from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And most importantly, not to dwell on that, but what is the way of coming back? What is the tangible, practical way of coming back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before it's too late? Before it's too late. Most people, unfortunately, as we just said, when they do beneficial things and they become successful in this dunya, the opposite also applies. People that have become losers and people who have failed in life. In most cases, it starts off when they are young. Substance abuse, trouble with the law, extremely bad habits, making a bad name for yourself, severing the ties of kin, breaking the relationship between your friends and your family members, and the list goes on. Bad grades. All of these things, they start at a very young age. They start at a very young age. So therefore, the most important thing in your deen is the salah, is prayer. Ask yourself the question, Yahi. You're 14 years old. Sister, you're 15 years old, 16 years old. How many salahs do you miss? If you have to sit down and think about a salah that you don't make, something is seriously wrong with your deen. If you don't have the proper attire, if you're not dressed properly to offer the salah, no matter where you are, no matter where you go, your pants are too tight, your shirt is too tight, your shorts are too short, your khimar isn't on, your clothes are too tight, something is seriously wrong with your religion. If you do not have the concept of salah and Allah's rights, being on time, being clean, concentration, submissiveness, then what are you going to have of the dunya? Because the salah gives you everything which is good. The person who makes the 5 daily prayers in congregation, how often does he oversleep? How often is he late for his or her engagements and arrangements and appointments? The ability to sit still, to focus, to concentrate, to pay attention. What better class or lesson do you have except for the salah? There's a place, there's a time, there's a dress code, there's a supplication, there's an action, there's a movement, there's an imam, there's a follower that gives you form and order in your life. And the focus of you having mental stillness, meditating, invoking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and allowing the stress of the dunya to leave your mind for 5 minutes, for 10 minutes, for 15 minutes, for 20 minutes. And it's not back to back. If you look at the wisdom of the prayer, as some mistaken Muslims do and think, they say, well, I don't make my prayers at my job or at school, or playing football or baseball or basketball or cricket. I can't pray these tights. I can't pray when I'm traveling like this and like that, so I go home at the hotel. I go to my house at the end of the day. I make fajr, I make dhuhr, I make asr, I make maghrib, and I make isha. There are many Muslims who think this, unfortunately, and they are extremely mistaken. And we're not here to talk about why that's wrong. We're here to mention one example of the wisdom of the 5 daily prayers being spaced out. Because if you do something all at once, you don't get any knowledge out of that thing. But just look at the fact, you wake up early in the morning, and as a wise man once said, he wasn't a Muslim, he said you should train yourself to get up before daybreak, because it contributes to one's health and to one's wealth. And he wasn't a Muslim, he didn't pray Fajr. But knew the concept of getting up early. So you wake up, you sacrifice sleep, and then time goes by. You eat, you drink, you go to work, you seek Allah's provision, and you have to stop your day once again. Back to that mental stillness. Back to that connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Back to washing our sins, getting more good deeds. And then time goes on again. And there's another stop, Asr, in the middle of the day. And then time goes on again. Then everything changes. It was once bright outside. There was a major sign from Allah that it's no longer bright outside, it's dark. As if it's a whole different sky. The temperature changes dramatically. It's time to remember Allah. And that's still not enough. Before you retire and go to sleep, before you take your rest, there is more prayer to be made. In other words, the salah keeps a Muslim mentally sharp. It keeps you on time. It keeps you organized in an orderly fashion. Let alone what the Prophet ﷺ told us regarding the similitude and the likeness of the 5 daily prayers. He says it's like a man who lives in a place, and in front of his home, at the gate of his house or his yard, he says there's a stream. There's a small body of water. And not only does he wash in that water once, most people, they take a shower at least once a day, twice a day, depending on where you live, how hot it is, how humid it is, and depending on your job and your occupation. But we say that the average person takes what? 1 to 2 showers a day. The Prophet ﷺ, he asked the companions, he says, what do you think? Now listen carefully, brothers and sisters. He asked the companions about using water in a place and in a time in which water was extremely scarce. Arabia, there was no running water, there was no plumbing, there was no rainfall. Every now and then, I've lived in Medina for over 10 years, and I remember days in which I counted how many times it rained in 1 year. And it was 1 year, it only rained 2 times. Out of 365 days, it only rained twice. And it didn't rain all day. It wasn't a thunderstorm. It rained a little bit, rained at the night, and then that was it. So the process of, he spoke to these companions before there was bottled water, before there was water treatment, water processing. He spoke to them. He says, what if a man takes 5 baths every day? 5 showers, 5 times he washes and scrubs, despite water being scarce, despite water being hard to come by, despite the natural heat and arid climate that they lived in. The Prophet says, he asked him, he says, will any dirt remain upon him? Will he stink? Will he be dirty? Will he have grit on his body? Will he have a bad smell? Of course they said, no, O Messenger of Allah. There's no doubt about that. If you wash 5 times a day, and not washing 5 times once, no. Wash in the morning, noon, a little later on, at nighttime, and before you go to sleep. The Prophet ﷺ, he says, كَذَلِكَ الصَّلَوَاتُ الْخَمْسِ. He says that is the similitude of the 5 prayers. يَمْحَ اللَّهُ بِهِنَّ الْخَطَايَا. Allah erases your sins therewith. In other words, when you're constantly making a salah, there's no dirt. Physical, mental, or spiritual. So just look at the benefit that that's going to overlap and carry on into your worldly life. The concept of prayer. How can you be greedy? How can you be stingy? How can you be late when you have the ultimate clock? And that's the clock of the spirit. You have a client, you have a patient, you have a game, he says, wait, I'm sorry, I have to go pray. Do you know how meaningful that is to someone? To a non-Muslim, when you stop your business, you close your shop, you delay your affairs, and say, I have to pray. Well, it has a severe effect upon non-Muslims because they realize that the prayers that they make are done sporadically. The prayers that they make oftentimes are only verbal, with the heart, but actual physical prayer. I don't jump into the prayer, I brush my teeth. I make wudu. I dress modestly. There's a dan, there's a qama, there's a time before the prayer, after prayer. That is a means of respect to these non-Muslims. So what example are you going to set for yourself and for others? And we go on and on and on and on and on, just about the salah. And the opposite is the opposite. If you do not pray, if you pray but lazily, lethargically, you don't pray on time, you don't pray in congregation, you don't know how many salats you missed, you pray and you scratch and you fumble, you look at your phone, you don't pray with the correct attire on, you don't understand the importance of the masjid, then there's no doubt you're going to fall victim to what Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu said when he wrote a letter to his governors in Iraq. He sent them a letter and he advised them, he admonished them. He told them, do not overtax the people, do not rob the people, do not oppress the people, do not be excessively harsh upon the people. And he told those righteous men, who were Sahaba, he says, إِنَّ أَهَمَّ أُمُورِكُمْ عِنْدِ الصَّلَاةِ. He says, and the most important of your tasks and duties to me is prayer. The money, the kharaj, the jizya, this one, that one, that's all good, that's fine, that's peachy. But the most important thing for me is that you establish the salah. And back then, it's not like how it is nowadays. The leader of the Muslims, he was the imam. He was the general in the time of battle. He was the one who led the hajj. He was in front of the people. And if it was a man who did not make a salah, who did not lead the people in a salah, who was not on time, he was drunk or overslept or whatever the case, they would remove those people instantly. And he said, من حفظ عليها كان لما سواها أحفظ ومن ضيعها كان لما سواها أضيع. Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, those who strictly guard the prayer will strictly guard everything else even more. And those who waste the prayer will waste everything else even more. In other words, once you don't pray correctly on time, forget about zakat. Forget about Ramadan. Forget about Hajj. Forget about the rest of your deen. If your salah has major cracks and chips, let alone gaping holes in its structure. The salah is the head, it's the beginning, it's the spearhead of your entire deen. So stop and ask yourself the question, how many Muslim youth do not make salah? How many parents see their children not praying and it's okay, it's alright. I don't want to be too harsh. I can't force him. I've spoke to him. I've talked to him. How many parents allow their Muslim youth to leave the home and they're not covered? They don't have a hijab. If she does it with the hijab, what's the chances of her making salah? What's the chances of her putting on the hijab and praying? Very slim. So just the concept of the prayer in Islam. And as we said, there are spiritual benefits in the prayer. There are physical benefits in the prayer. And there are material benefits in the salah. As we just said. When was the last time you didn't go to work and you got up for Fajr? When was the last time you were late for work and you got up for Fajr and prayed in the masjid and made your adhkar and read the Quran? When was the last time? When was the last time you got up late for work and you overslept for Fajr? When is the last time you missed the salah and you were mu'adhin at the masjid? And the list goes on, concept after concept of what the salah does to you of structure. And it has no doubt the most important key. And you being successful in the worldly life is discipline. How much are you disciplined? Moving on. وعليك أيها الشاب أن تكون مؤديا حقوق العباد التي أوجبها الله عليك وأعظمها حق الأبوين فإنه حق عظيم واجب جسيم. And after the salah and the other rights of Allah, the duties that you have that Allah deserves are the rights of His slaves. And the greatest of those rights are the rights of your two parents, your mother and your father, or your mother or your father and your mother, however you want to word it. Your two parents, If you're disrespectful to your mother, you get an attitude, you suck your teeth, you drag your feet, if you try to challenge your father, talk back to your father, I don't like you with this and that, what success are you going to have? How are you going to respect your teacher, your coach? If you don't know how to respect someone who's older than you, someone who does something for you, someone who's benevolent to you, what success are you going to be as a basketball player? Most Muslim youth and all of the centers that we go to, they say, I want to be a basketball player. I want to be a football player. I want to do this. I want to go here. And wallahi al-azim, just last night in Windsor, Connecticut, a lady before the class, she stopped me before the class. Said, Mufti, it's time to speak. She says, but I must speak to him right now. She says, please. She went into the office with her 14-year-old son, closed and locked the door. And I taught her son, and I also taught her, they're both students there. She said, Mufti, please talk to my son. He has an anger problem. He's disrespectful. He gets smart with me. He doesn't want to listen to me. He's this and he's this and he's this and he's this and he's this. The boy protested. Oh, me dad, not in front of Mufti. No, not right now. She said, no, you want to talk right now in front of Mufti. And he says he wants to be a basketball player. You don't think the coach is going to talk to his mother? You don't think when he's in high school, when he's in college, and the scouts come to offer him money and contracts, you don't think they're going to talk to his mother? You don't think they're going to sit and feel? You don't think she's going to complain? You think they want somebody on their team that can't respect authority, can't respect those who are older, can't respect those who bites the hands that feeds them? You see the point we're trying to get to? When I talk about the Islamic point of view, that it's a major sin to disrespect your mother. It's a major sin to disrespect your father. It's a major sin to be disobedient to your parents. But just the fact that you're not going to be successful in the dunya, and not what you want, if you do not give Allah's servants their due rights. And the greatest of those rights are the rights of the parents, and from the greatest of those two rights, the rights of the mother. And this is a sad reality. He was a good kid, but he had a problem with his mother. I gave him advice. I told him, please don't disrespect your mother. We shouldn't have this conversation again. Your mother loves you. She traveled from this far country. Only Allah knows the hardships that she went through coming to the United States for you to have a better living, for you to have a better education, for you to have better health care, for you to live and be happy. And that's how you repair. And you think that you're going to be successful in the dunya, being an engineer or a doctor or a basketball player? That's a fantasy. So the point I'm trying to get to is everything Islamic that you do is going to have an effect upon your worldly success as well. So these pieces of advice, if you take them, as we said, there's no way you can lose. No way that you can lose. وعليك أيها الشاب أن تكون قريبا من أهل العلم وتابع أهل الفضل تستمع إلى أقوالهم وتسترشد بفتاواهم وتنتفع بعلومهم وتستشيرهم فيما أهمك. وعليك أيها الشاب أن تكون محققا ما أوجبه الله عليك من سمع مطاع إلى آخره. The next piece of advice, and perhaps the last piece of advice right now for the time that we have here, because it's a long topic and discussion and so many different dimensions, ins and outs, is what I mentioned before and I'll mention again, and it never gets old and it gets tired. The greatest piece of advice that I can give to the Muslim youth is company. Who is your friend? Who do you hang out with? Who do you laugh with? Who do you joke with? This is going to have an ultimate effect upon your success or upon your failure in this life and in the next. Who is your close companion? Who do you speak with? Who do you talk with? Who do you laugh and joke with? That is going to have a pivotal role. And you being a doctor, you being a great basketball player, you being a great imam, a great hafiz, a mufti, a mullah, a alim, a qari, or you being something other than that. So who is your company, Yahi? Who are your friends? Which one of your friends has memorized the Quran? And you say you want to memorize the Quran. I want to learn the Quran. Do you have any other friends who are Hafaz? You want to learn Arabic? How many of your friends speak Arabic? You want to be righteous, you want to be pious. What are your friends like? You have a problem with this and with that. What are your friends like? There lies no doubt the support system in our land. There may be some people that you can't talk to. Unfortunately, your mother or your father, unfortunately. And it's a bitter reality of 2016, of the break and the gap between the generations. Most masjids that you go to, alhamdulillah, this is different here. Many places, most places you go to, you see there's someone that's really old or someone that's really young. But the 17-year-olds, the 16-year-olds, the 18-year-olds, the 19-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, the 25-year-olds, very seldom do you find it in the masjid. And even here, you can see that. You find people that are older, and people that are what? Younger. And many people, when you sit down and you talk to them, they say, I can't talk to my dad. I can't have a conversation with my mother. I can't have a conversation with my father, for one reason or another. But how did you become successful? How did you leave this environment, this neighborhood, this problem, so on and so forth? Why are you practicing? How did you go overseas and learn to study? It was a friend. It was an older brother, an uncle, somebody on your block, a brother in the masjid. There had to be someone that guided them, took them by their hand, and allowed them to do what? To talk. Everybody understand this? The first step in solving problems is a friendly ear. A friendly ear. So how many of your friends you can't talk to? They tell your secrets. They're foolish themselves. They can't give you no nasiha. They can't give you no advice. That's a problem. Going to school, studying, being an athlete, whatever you want to do of success in this life and thereafter, it starts with your friends. The company that you keep. The company that you keep. And I don't think we need to talk about this anymore. We all know the famous cliche, birds of a feather flock together. You won't find a hawk with a pigeon. Never. You're not going to find a vulture with a sparrow. You're not going to find an African gray or a parrot with a bald eagle. They don't mix. They don't get along. What he eats and what this bird eats, like night and day. Where they live, how fast they fly, where they go, they don't mix. They stay, brother, not only do they not mix, but they what? They keep their what? Their clear distance. And the moment they mix and they come together, it's dangerous for one of the two birds. And in most cases, it's not going to be the hawk or the owl, the bird of prey, but it's going to be the peace-loving bird, the good young Muslim that hangs around with bad Muslims is going to be eaten up and swallowed. The dunya is going to tear you to pieces. So you have to keep good company. And last but not least, to the parents, to the fathers and the mothers and the fathers, you cannot be lax with regards to your children's company. You must fear Allah. You cannot be lax. It is not okay to see them hanging out with these people that are no good, even if they're Muslims. Even if they're friends with their parents, but these children are no good. Son, you can't go out with them, I'm sorry. If he gets mad, if he gets upset, you're too harsh, you must take preventative measures for your child's safety. And all it takes is one car accident, one cup, one this, one that.